So I've said this before in this channel, and I'll say it again. Smartwatches are still kind of trying to find their place in the world, and a lot of people use them for many different things. Some people use them for tracking health and activities and fitness, while other people don't really care as much about that and would much rather use it as either a style accessory or maybe just as an extension of their phone to reply to notifications, emails, and all types of things like that. But regardless of what you're trying to do with this, Samsung came out with two different watches, the Galaxy Watch 4 and the Galaxy Watch 4 Classic. So in this video, I want to dive into these watches and talk about not only what's different about them to help you decide which one you should get, but also why Samsung did what they did. And I think they're following a very interesting trend here. They're almost in a way doing something similar to what Apple did, and I'll explain what I mean by that in a second. So looking at these two watches, before we get into the differences, I kind of want to point out that the Galaxy Watch 4 Classic is now the sequel to the Galaxy Watch 3, just the 3 regular. And the Galaxy Watch 4 regular is the sequel to the Galaxy Watch 2 Active. So you might notice that we added the word classic, we removed the word active, and I think that's kind of showing a shift in what Samsung's really viewing as their primary market for smartwatches. And I think it kind of aligns with the Apple Watches. Now, the Apple Watches are all regular. Like Apple Watch just looks a lot more like the Galaxy Watch Active. They don't have big rotating bezels, nothing like that. It's a more simple design. And I think that's kind of what Samsung's going for. They want their main watch to be what used to be the Active, because not only is it more affordable really, but it's also a little bit more conducive to an active lifestyle. And on top of that, it's a little bit more of a universal style. It's a little more subtle and it's not quite as flashy. Now, with that being said, I think Samsung still knows that a lot of their hardcore fans out there really love that rotating bezel, and rightfully so. So they didn't want to get rid of the Galaxy Watch 4 with the bezel. So they just call that one the Classic. Now, with that being said, I think that's just a subtle shift, but looking at these watches, let's start to pick apart some of the major differences here. The first one, and possibly the most obvious you'll see, is going to be the size. Both of these have two different sizes. So as you can see right here, the Galaxy Watch 4 Classic has a 46mm variation, which is what we have right here, as well as a 42mm one. Now, the Galaxy Watch 4, the Active, the regular one, the basic one, has two sizes as well. And this is anywhere from 40mm up to 44mm. Now, noticing that size difference, you might assume that there's going to be a difference in the screen and the battery and a bunch of things like that, as we typically see with a lot of other devices. But interestingly enough, that's actually not the case. They both have exactly the same size display, the same battery, and everything like that. So if you buy the 44mm Galaxy Watch 4 or the 46mm Galaxy Watch 4 Classic, you're going to essentially get the exact same display size. The difference in size of the body is really because of that rotating bezel. Now, looking a little bit more at the rotating bezel, while you do kind of have the equivalent on the Galaxy Watch 4 regular by the touch bezel, as they call it, it's not quite as satisfying. And there's definitely something to be said about having that nice mechanical rotating bezel. It looks nicer, it feels nicer, and when you're using the watch, it just gives you a really nice, really premium feel to the watch. On top of that, I think it's very functional, and it is easier to use than the touch bezel. But with that being said, it definitely adds a little bit of bulk. 46mm is a pretty large watch. I feel like I have pretty average sized wrists, and it wasn't especially large on me, but with the new strap design, as you can see, it kind of sticks out a little farther. So unless you replace the strap with something that doesn't have that little end piece right there, it is going to be a little bit larger than it actually looks, really. So if you have a small wrist, you might want to consider getting a slightly smaller watch. But we're not done talking about the bezel yet. You can see that the Galaxy Watch 4 Classic definitely gives you more of like an analog timepiece aesthetic, and one of the big benefits here is that it also really masks any kind of bezel around the display. So instead of having a black ring around the outside, this one, you can see, covers that very well with nice little markings and with that really high gloss, or not high gloss really, but with that stainless steel bezel. So I think that looks really nice, the physical rotating bezel, where on the flip side, the Galaxy Watch 4, you can see that if you don't have a black watch face, if you're using say like a white watch face, you'll definitely see that black ring around the outside. It doesn't look great, although it doesn't look especially bad. You definitely get used to it, and I think this one is kind of a trade-off. So what they did here versus the Galaxy Watch Active 2, which had more rounded edges, this one has more kind of rectangular edges all the way around this one, which means that you are really kind of accenting that black bezel around the display. I'm not a big fan of that, but other than that, I really do like the kind of futuristic design. Having that aluminum, the aluminum rails on either side of this watch, I think give it a really nice look. It is very slim and subtle, and so when you're wearing this watch, despite having the same display size, it feels substantially smaller than the Galaxy Watch 4 Classic. I think that alone is a big benefit, especially for anybody looking to work out or wear like long sleeves that are gonna slide on this one. Like, it definitely, there's something to be said about having a slimmer, more sleek looking watch. Now, I mentioned that the strap made the watch look slightly bigger, and that's something else I really want to talk about here. When you're buying these watches, you have two different colors for the Galaxy Watch 4 Classic, which I think is kind of unfortunate, but at the same time, two colors is really all you probably need here. You've got the silver one here, and you have a black variation as well. Honestly, I think the silver one looks really nice. The strap that it comes with is a ridged silicone strap, whereas you'll see on the actives, or not the actives, the regular Galaxy Watch 4s, we don't have a ridge in the strap. We'll talk more about that strap in a second. But honestly, for the classic one, I'm not sure why they gave us a silicone strap. I think that really to justify this price difference, which by the way is $100 more for pretty much every variation to go from the Watch 4 to the Watch 4 Classic. But to really justify that $100 price difference, I think it would make more sense if they gave us a leather strap. I'm not sure why they chose to do this. And another thing to note is it is actually a 20mm watch strap, so it is much, much narrower than most other watches. So say, like, for example, last year, we have a 22mm strap on the Galaxy Watch 3, and that one doesn't have that kind of weird taper at the end. So it looks, honestly, I think the strap looks a lot nicer on last year's Galaxy Watch 3. That's not to say I don't like the Watch 4. I really do like this aesthetic, but the strap, like I said, is going to be slightly different. Now, looking at the Galaxy Watch 4, the not classic variation, this one we actually have many more colors. We have 4 different colors, and the strap on here, I think, is really kind of nice. It's very subtle. You don't have a ridge on here, so it's not quite as bulky. And on top of that, the way it fits on your wrist, I mean, it's a really nice, smooth strap, but you kind of go in this little buckle, and then it tucks down underneath in that strap. Of course, you could replace the straps on either one of these. They're both using 20mm straps, but I just think that the one that it comes with makes more sense with the Galaxy Watch 4. The Classic, I don't know why they chose to ship with that strap. And then really the last physical difference I wanted to point out, which does also make the Watch 4 Classic a bit more premium, is the build material. So on the outside of the Galaxy Watch 4, we have aluminum rails, as I mentioned before, which, I mean, feels nice, it looks nice, but aluminum is a bit of a softer material, so it's not unlikely that you could maybe get little scratches onto here or dings over time if you end up, really using this watch. Now, the Galaxy Watch 4 Classic has a more premium stainless steel on the outside, which does make it feel substantially heavier, but I think that is kind of a good thing. It goes with the classic look here, and it makes it look and feel, again, more premium. So that's pretty much it for the physical differences between these watches. Now you might be wondering, what about the internals? Is there any difference in storage, or is there a different processor, or anything like that? And this is actually the easiest part of this video. Honestly, there are no differences between these watches, so that's the good thing. If you're looking at the Galaxy Watch 4 or the Watch 4 Classic, you really just have to consider the overall aesthetic and the build materials of this watch. Other than that, you're going to get the same display, the same battery, the same processor or chip, the SoC, the same RAM. Everything on there is really going to be exactly the same watch. So between these two, which one would I recommend getting? Honestly, because you're saving $100 and you do get a slightly slimmer, smaller watch, I think the Watch 4 makes more sense for most people out there. However, if you have a little extra cash to spend and you like that rotating bezel, maybe if you don't plan on using it as much as an active device, then the Watch 4 Classic, I mean, that rotating bezel is definitely a really nice positive. But you can leave a comment below. Between these two, which one do you like better? And what do you think about Samsung changing their naming scheme? I think it's kind of clear now that in the future, they're really planning on the active style watch being their main focus. And then the classic watch, who knows, it might not even exist in a couple years. But leave a comment below. I want to hear your thoughts, guys. As always, if you enjoy this video, consider liking and subscribing. I'm Mike O'Brien. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.